especially since half of us are in Tuba City. How are we going to do that? We've already talked about online counseling, and it seems to be viable. The APA supports it. They say sometimes, in select circumstances, online counseling is better than face-to-face counseling. It's cheaper. It's more rapid. And for that reason, we're going to do both. We're going to do both face-to-face and online counseling. The part that has disturbed me the most is the fact that when do we start? That's the biggest problem. I haven't given you all the information that you need yet in order to start counseling. Last time we started, I don't know, about the 8th week. So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through all my lectures. There's not that much left, and then we'll just start counseling, and that's what we'll do. We'll just meet on Mondays and Wednesdays and counsel, and then you'll also have a responsibility to counsel somebody online. So you'll have somebody in here to counsel, and you'll also have somebody online. Now, normally what I do is I change the person you're counseling, but well, we'll see how that works. Maybe we'll stick with the same person for maybe a week, and then of course that'll be 2 counseling sessions, or maybe 2 weeks, and then we'll switch because we need to practice with people with different problems, so that you can see what it's like dealing with different types of problems. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get through all the lectures, and that'll give you an opportunity to take all the quizzes. There are discussion questions, of course. It'll give you an opportunity to get through all that stuff, and then we'll start counseling. And the last part of the semester should be a little bit of a respite, but at the same time, it should give you an opportunity to discover whether this is a game you want to play. And I call it a game. Everything that I do is a game. So, to see if you really want to be a counselor or not. It's not for everybody. I'm not very good at it. Well, I'm not that bad at it. My problem is that I'd rather do this. I would certainly rather do this. Some people can do it and some people can't. It really all depends. Some people don't have the personality for it. My personality is okay. I can handle it. That's not the problem. The problem is time. I don't know. It's just not anything I've ever really wanted to do for an extended length of time. But, with my knowledge in psychology, I get to do this all the time anyway. Students will come into students and people off the street will come into my office. They're trying to talk me into giving them money. Or whatever. Okay, we're talking about social cognitive theory. Of course, social cognitive theory used to be called social learning theory. It's still called social learning theory. It all depends on whether we're talking about counseling or not. There are 3 aspects to it. You have to look at the environment of the individual, personal aspects of the individual, and how that individual is behaving. We talked about this last time. The personal factors include everything. Who you are, your physical makeup, the structure of your brain. Do you have a problem in your brain? And of course, this is what we're looking for when we see somebody that's a shooter, like the guy in Las Vegas. They did a brain scan. They did an autopsy, and they looked at his brain to see if he had a tumor someplace. And of course, he didn't. We're pretty sure he's fairly intact. Is he insane? We want to know if this guy's insane or not. If he's insane, it gives us an excuse for it, why he did what he did. But it doesn't look like there's any indication that this is a problem.
Could there be a possibility that maybe he just wanted to do something?
Sure, of course he did. And that's the problem. If he wants to do it, how many other people are there out there that are doing exactly the same thing that he did? People that actually do have a mental illness or have some kind of a chemical imbalance. You know, what is, and I'm a little bit surprised. Well, actually, 5 people were just shot in New Jersey. So I'm a little surprised we haven't seen a copycat. That happens all the time. Marilyn Monroe commits suicide, and suicides go up 12% in the next 6 months in the United States. You know, we see this all the time, and we can call them copycats, but the reality is they've had this idea, and now that they see somebody else do it, they want to do it too, or they say, well, obviously I can do it since this guy did it. So, you know, there may be other guys that have accumulated masses of ammunition and masses of weapons who are out there. The interesting thing with this individual is that he had no military background. A lot of times these guys they try to fit themselves in a persona, a military persona, even if they've never, you know, they're playing army is what they're doing. They're pretending to be somebody that they're not. Of course, if he'd been in the military, a lot of these individuals were kicked out of the military. I told you about the guy that told me if I ever come back to Indiana, he's going to shoot me. He joined the Navy, and he was only in the Navy for 3 weeks. He got a psych eval, and they boarded him out because he's nuts. And obviously, he's accumulated weapons and ammunition. I mean, he's got boxes and boxes of ammunition in his garage, which is not the best place to keep your ammunition. You need to keep it dry. You need to keep it away from any possible problems with moisture, of course. But he's not doing that. He's not real bright anyway. Okay, so the brain structure is something that we need to look at. The cognitive capacity of the individual, how smart are they? A lot of times we see individuals who are very, very intelligent do some really damn stupid things. And the problem is that when they're out in the public, when they're with their cohorts aren't as smart as they are, and it frustrates them. And they have to act not as smart, because if they act as smart as they actually are, they will intimidate everybody, and nobody will want to have anything to do with them. So they dummy themselves down for an extended length of time, and this is really frustrating for them. So cognitive capacity is really important. We think of individuals with problems as individuals who aren't real bright, but the reality is we see a lot of people that are quite intelligent, doing some really heinous things. A good example is Ted Bundy, in the IQ in the 130 to 140 range. This guy was really, really, really smart. His problem was that society, he had all this intelligence, but society rejected him because he was raised as his mother's brother rather than his mother's son. His mother got pregnant at like 13 or 14. And he was born, of course, and they decided that they would pretend that he was her brother, that he came from the grandmother instead of his mother. So he treated his mother like a sister, and at one point he had fantasies about having sex with his mother, who he thought was his sister.
Confusing.
I know. It's confusing. Anyway, cognitive capacity. Really bright people, or people without much intellectual capacity. Belief system, of course, we talked about this last time. Religions can change things. Spirituality can change things. It can change the way you see the world. Some religions reject everybody except the adherents to their religion, and this is a problem. This can potentially be a problem, because that means that we have select individuals who are the chosen ones, and that makes everybody else the unchosen ones, probably. So that's kind of an interesting situation. That makes everybody subhuman. If you are human, that makes everybody else subhuman, which is I find just fascinating personally. Anyway. Self-concepts, how do they feel about themselves? What kind of goals do they have, and what kind of emotions do they show in a normal situation? That's the personal factors included in the social cognitive theory. Personal factors deal with how you interact with others. One of the really important things is, are they focused internally or are they focused externally? You don't have your brace on. Okay.
I got another.
Oh, it's a smaller one.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they focused internally or are they focused externally? In other words, do they pay more attention to themselves or do they pay more attention to everybody else? Okay. Research has shown that behavior affects brain structures. Long-haul truckers, for example, have a different brain structure than theoretical physicists. Behavior also affects physical makeup, as someone who is sedentary will look different from somebody who is a marathoner. I was reading Runner's World, one of my favorite magazines, over the summer, and there's a long-haul trucker that tries to get truckers to exercise when they're down. They can only drive for 8 hours a day or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's 8 hours a day. So they can only exercise for 8 hours a day. So what do they do when they're not? They can only drive for 8 hours a day. So what do they do when they're not driving? And the answer is they sit in truck stops and drink coffee and eat greasy food is usually what they do. So he's trying to get them to exercise. It's really kind of interesting. He's an Iraq War veteran, and when he stops at a truck stop, he tries to stop at a truck stop where there is a road that he can jog on, and he tries to get other long-haul truckers to do that. Because it's a relatively sedentary lifestyle, it's a relatively negative lifestyle, because these individuals are riding around in their trucks. In the old days, they had CB radios, and they used to communicate with each other. They don't do that anymore. It's not as common as it used to be. So these guys really live very lonely lives, as you can imagine. And they go to truck stops, or they go to casinos. A lot of truck stops have casinos, and they gamble away all their money as something to do, just something to do. When assessing a person's readiness or ability to make changes from the point of view of the social cognitive theory, several dimensions are considered. Does the environment support or encourage change behavior? And we've talked about this as far as alcoholism is concerned. A lot of times in the case of an individual that's suffering from alcoholism, these individuals are living in an environment that supports their drinking. So one of the things that you have to do is they have to change their environment. There's nothing you can do about changing their environment. But sometimes they're just in a really negative environment. What if it's a situation where the family is actually the problem? The family has a negative dynamic. Because of that, the child is suffering from ADHD or whatever. So you really can't fix the kid until we fix the environment that the kid is in, because it will just continue to disrupt the select individual. Does the person think that they have the capacity to make the change? A lot of people do not have a very high self-esteem. Some select individuals do not have a very high self-esteem, and they don't believe in themselves. And for that reason, of course, that select individual would have a difficult time actually changing their behavior. They don't think that they have the capacity to do it. Does the client believe that there is something to be gained from making the change rather than maintaining their current behavior? And this is the biggest problem, especially with somebody's, let's take, for example, somebody who's a drinker. Is it really going to make any difference if they stop drinking? people use marijuana as an excuse. And they use alcohol with the same excuse. They say, I can't relax unless I have a drink. I can't relax unless I'm total. Gee, I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for marijuana. It's the only thing that allows me to relax. So the question is, do they believe that they're going to gain anything from changing their behavior? The practitioner must take into account all the factors that influence the client's family, influence the client, their family, the group, or the organization that we're dealing with. Do they feel compelled to solve the problem? The amount of discomfort created by the problem impacts the motivation. Environmental factors can influence motivation. And of course, we talked about a situation where they were ordered to change their behavior. They were ordered to seek counseling, in which case the motivation isn't very strong as far as they're concerned. They are perfectly happy to stay the way that they are. They're not the ones, they don't have the motivation, it's the courts that are telling them what to do. Somebody used the movie 28 Days with Sandra Bullock as the movie that they were discussing, which is really a good movie. The interesting thing about that movie is she doesn't want to change. She doesn't think she has a problem. Of course, she just wrecked a car and destroyed her sister's wedding. And of course the court sent her in and she has no motivation, she doesn't really want to change. She and her boyfriend or fiance, I'm not exactly sure what he is as far as she's concerned, but their whole relationship is based on drinking. Their relationship is based on her being a wild child. And without the alcohol, she's not nearly as much fun as she is when she's drinking. There's another movie with Meg Ryan in it and Andy Garcia. They're married, they have a child, and her, while she's drinking, she's a lot more fun and she's less introspective, for example. And when she stops drinking, she's not nearly as much fun. So the relationship breaks up. Or the relationship suffers, I guess. She doesn't decide to stop drinking until something almost happens to her daughter, or something happens to her daughter when she's drunk and she can't respond. I haven't seen the movie for a long time. I don't really like watching those movies. They really kind of upset me. Kind of pisses me off since I'm a teetotaler and I'm no fun. I'm obviously no fun anyway. I have, people have stated that in a court of law, strangely enough, that I'm no fun at all. Both my first and second wives stated in the divorce proceedings that I was no fun at all. As a matter of fact, I was the most boring person in the world. Evidently, I'm the most boring person in the world in Texas. And it's on the damn books, okay? It's really kind of tragic. It was 2 Fridays ago, we had to drive over to Shiprock, and Marius jumped in the car with me and we took off. Once upon a time, I was told that people didn't like to ride with me because I was so boring. I know, and I was going to tell Marius that, but I decided not to. He talked the whole time anyway, I didn't have to say anything, so it's okay. I really am the most boring person in the world. Kind of a tragedy. Anyway, okay, so not motivated to change, and that's one of the problems that we have. Okay, yes, I am boring. I apologize. The relationship of the client and the practitioner influence motivation. Positive regard can increase motivation, as can the practitioner's genuineness, focus on the issues, and regular feedback. And of course, that's what the practitioner needs to do. They need to give them as much feedback as possible. Problems in the relationship must be dealt with non-defensively by both parties, but especially the practitioner. You need to be very careful because they're going to insult you. They're going to try to destroy the relationship between you and them because they don't want to do it. So if they can get you to be the one to terminate the sessions, then they won. They don't have to do it. So you need to be very, very careful. You need to you need to develop a thick skin. If you get upset because your client gets upset with you, then you're never going to make it. Because they will do it every time. Well, not every time. Some people really want to be fixed, but there's a lot of people that don't want to be fixed. And the worst ones are alcoholics. They're terrible. They're liars. They'll do anything to destroy the situation. They'll do anything to go back to the way it was. They are number 2, actually. Number 1 is people with antisocial personality disorder. But the thing about people with antisocial personality disorder, really hard to deal with, but the reality is that they think they're so much smarter than you are that there's nothing you can tell them. So, I don't know. Have a Trivial Pursuit contest with them or something. Show them how smart you are. And of course, that is part of them trying to discount what's happening in the counseling relationship, is by getting you to go off script. Works. It's really hard to deal with these people. I have people with antisocial personality disorder. I don't know if you've ever been around them, but they're really good liars. They're number 1.
So in that case, would you dance around the problem, or, there's ways...
No, you can jump right on it. It doesn't really make any difference. They're not going to change anyway. People with antisocial personality disorder, their brains are wired around. And unless you can go in there and rewire their brains, there's not a lot you can do. Sometimes they'll play the game where you're actually helping them. You're wonderful. You're the best counselor I've ever met. But, there's not a whole hell of a lot that's going to happen. They're going to stay the person that they are. You cannot teach somebody empathy who doesn't have empathy, who doesn't understand what empathy is. But they'll play the game. They'll play the game for an extended length of time. Until they get out. And then they'll go back to the way that they were before. There's just not a whole hell of a lot you can do. It's like schizophrenia. You really can't fix people with schizophrenia. You can talk to them, but you've got to understand that they're making connections that don't exist. And sometimes they're accumulating things that you say, but it's not really going to the right place. We're talking about reason here. We're dealing with reason. And reason doesn't exist for them because things aren't going in the right direction. So they don't accumulate information very well. So there's not a whole lot you can do with people with schizophrenia. Talking cures do not work for people with schizophrenia. Talking cures don't work with people with antisocial personality disorder. But you can try, and they'll try. You can fix people who are alcoholics. You can convince them that they would be better off not drinking. But the first thing you have to do is get them to admit that they've got a problem. That's the only, people with schizophrenia, their reasoning capacity is different. It's completely different, and it's all over the map. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Because what you have to do, you have to organize their thoughts. And they can't organize their thoughts. That's what you're doing with everybody, right? You're changing the way that they think. But you can't do that with people with schizophrenia. And it's tough with people with antisocial personality disorder. They have to be motivated, and they are rarely motivated because they have evolved, they have developed themselves with this problem. I'm thinking of two of the hardest things in the world to talk about or to deal with: schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. But you got to get, and it's not bad to do the people with antisocial personality disorder because you learn how lies work. and how these accumulate over time. You learn how to deal with people that lie to you, I mean, almost constantly. It's really interesting.
So this personality that you're talking about, is this, do they learn it from someone else or they just pick it up themselves?
People with antisocial personality disorder seem to have this from birth. And it follows a pattern. These individuals never develop empathy. Normally, almost all babies love other babies. They love other babies, and they love kittens, and they love puppies, and they love all the young things. But these individuals grow up hurting puppies and kitties on purpose. So it's their wiring. There's something wrong inside, and it follows a pattern. Antisocial personality disorder starts out as conduct disorder. Oppositional defiant disorder, and then it goes to conduct disorder, and then it drifts into antisocial personality disorder. But along with that comes ADHD. They also have ADHD, but they don't really have ADHD. The problem that they have is that they don't have any empathy. They don't have any impulse control. But it's not really ADHD. It's really antisocial personality disorder. But we don't diagnose children, 5-year-olds, with antisocial personality disorder. Even though you can see it. And once they end up in prison, you go, oh my God, I knew he was going to end up here. There was just something about that little 5-year-old. He would never listen to adults. He always did everything wrong. He always tried to get other people in trouble. People with antisocial personality disorder have 3 problems. They grew up with 3 problems. One is they have a fascination with fire. They start fires. They'll light anything on fire. You have to be really careful with these kids because they'll burn down your house. Second is they're bedwetters. Now this is something that only them and their family knows about, of course. And the third is that they torture small animals or other people. And those are the 3 aspects of an individual that's either, we used to call them psychopaths. Well, we don't anymore. We call them people with antisocial personality disorder. There's no medication we can give them. There's nothing we can do about it. They're just messed up. And they'll eventually end up in jail. But the question is, how many people will get hurt before we can lock them away? I know. Yeah. So when we're talking about criminals, sometimes they have antisocial personality disorder. We've seen different estimates as far as antisocial personality disorder is concerned. Some people say, oh, the majority of people in prisons have antisocial personality disorder. Other individuals say, no, it's more like 10 to 15%. Because these individuals almost always end up in prison. You can't get them to you can't get them to work. They'll get a job. They tend to be very charming people because they're really good liars. So they tend to be very charming. So you hire them, but they miss work. They've got all the excuses in the world. Oh, my cat's sick, that kind of thing. They don't have a cat. They keep losing grandparents despite the fact that you're only supposed to have 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever. But these people seem to lose a grandparent every week. That kind of stuff. They just don't show up for work. And they don't do a good job when they're there. They try to get other people to do their work for them. Yeah, this is a tough group. Their work history is very spotty. They try to get other people to take care of them. Anybody to take care of them. They make really good pimps because that means somebody is doing their work for them or is giving them their money. It's really kind of an odd group.
How many people are there out there with antisocial personality disorder? I don't know. Seem to be more than we like. We would love to pin that label on the shooter in Las Vegas. Love to. Solve all of our problems. We wouldn't have to ask any more questions. We wouldn't have to ruminate about this. That was 2 weeks ago. And he's still in the news. So we're trying to figure out what was going on. That's a lot of dead people. It's a lot. 567 people were injured. 59 of them are dead. Oh my goodness gracious, this is amazing. Nobody does this kind of stuff, so we have to figure it out. And it would be nice if we could label it this way. But, the people with antisocial personality disorder, we know who they are. The police know who they are because they keep getting into trouble. They keep trying to cheat people but they're charming, and people let them get away with stuff. They tend to be attractive. Obviously, I don't have a problem. Oh man, life is so hard. Okay, so what do you need to do? Problems in relationship must be dealt with non-defensively. Okay, we talked about that before. It is important for the practitioner to regularly ask for feedback from the client to ensure that the progress he or she perceives is actual and not illusional. And of course, one of the things that you're going to learn as you get into this is that alcoholics are kind of like people with antisocial personality disorder, but they're only antisocial when they're drinking. So we can get them sober, then everything changes. If you've ever been around anybody that was an alcoholic, you probably noticed this. The personality when they were drunk is completely different than the personality when they're sober. Hopefully it's better. Sometimes it's not. But usually it's better because they don't lie anymore. They're not lying anymore. They're not manipulative. Everything just changes, and it's a much better situation. That's why we try to keep people from drinking. And of course, marijuana is kind of the same way. One of the problems with marijuana that most people don't even talk about is the fact that it makes you paranoid. It tends to make people paranoid. And at first we thought that this was just because it was illegal, but now that it's legal in select places like Colorado and California, up and down the West Coast. Now that we know that now that it is legal, we see that people that smoke pot tend to be paranoid, and they're paranoid about things, despite the fact that they're not going to be arrested tomorrow afternoon. That's not what they're paranoid about. There's some chemical aspect in the brain that makes them paranoid. So it raises their anxiety levels while they're smoking, and it gets worse when they're not smoking. They get more anxious when they're not smoking. Anyway.
My father's like that.
He's paranoid?
Well, no, so we lost my mom a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
He's been on a downward spiral since. And you're right about that. They can only change if they want to change. So he's like in denial of it. He doesn't think he has a problem with it.
Right.
And he sobers up. He just doesn't want to talk about it.
Right.
But when he is like that, like when he's in his still and drunk, then he really talks about what's wrong with him or talks about problems. He just becomes like a different person.
Yeah.
And then when he's sobered up, he just doesn't want to talk to anybody. He just thinks he's got it under control kind of thing. But so he's tried treatment plans, he's tried all these different things, but he doesn't really deal with it.
No follow through. Yeah. Totally different personality. Assessing motivation to change, discounting in a discounting. That's okay. There you go. There's the word you need. Discounting is a cognitive distortion that allows clients to deny or minimize the existence of the problem, and that's what your dad's doing. He's discounting. There are 4 levels of discounting. Thinking there is no problem, Thinking the problem is not significant, but it is present. We know that it's present, but it's not important enough. It's not significant enough to deal with. Thinking that the problem does not have a solution. Yes, I have a problem, but there's just no way to fix it. I'm not going to be this way all my life. Like I'm talking about antisocial personality disorder, like there's no way to fix it. And the answer is, well, there isn't any way to fix it. We can't throw a pill at these people and fix them. And popping pills into their mouths. No, it doesn't work. Yeah, even though that they know that there is a problem, they'd like to fix it, they don't think that there's a solution. Of course, this blocks their motivation. Why try? I mean, if I can't fix it. There is no solution to this problem. And of course, that's what we're going through with North Korea right now. The president says that there's nothing we can do about the North Koreans. Somebody should have done this 25 years ago. That's what he keeps saying. Somebody should have done this 25 years ago. Who's president 25 years ago? Whose fault is it?
Carter?
No, Carter was 76 through 80. That's 37 years ago. Sounds like it's Bill's problem. It's Bill's fault. No. So we've got Hillary, who's the arch devil, and then we have her husband, who's it's his fault that the North Koreans are the way they are. This is perfect. All we need to do is keep hearkening back 25 years. We can blame the Clintons for everything. It's perfect. Okay. Yeah, this is a problem that this is what the president is saying. He says there's no solution. It is a problem. He knows it's a problem, and he wants to do something about it. But there is no good solution except for war. That's what he's saying. And of course, everybody else is going, wait a minute, we're talking about nuclear weapons here. I know, let's not do that. Let's not drop any more bombs, okay? Good idea. And the last is thinking that others have changed the problem. Thinking that others have changed the problem, but that he or she cannot do it. Oh, it doesn't. There is a solution, and other people have done it, but I can't fix it. It just isn't going to work for me. I've got some examples for you. Okay, I've got some examples for you. Thinking there is no problem. This is an individual who thinks being 50 pounds overweight is not a problem. Of course, that it's okay to look like this. It's okay to be that big. There's just no way he can fix it. 50 pounds, being 50 pounds overweight, no big deal. Thinking there is no problem. Family that believes that disciplining children by hitting them with a belt isn't a problem. It's okay. Everybody should be doing this, not just us. It's not really a problem. The task group that thinks that the fact that they haven't started working on an assignment that is due in a few days is not a problem. And the last one is a business that thinks the fact that their product isn't completely safe is not a problem. It's okay. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. I know sometimes the toaster starts on fire. It's not that big a deal. Just keep a fire extinguisher right there. No problem whatsoever. Okay, let's go back. Thinking that the problem is not significant. A guy that is 50 pounds overweight accepts it as a problem, but not a serious problem. This, of course, is Pablo Sandoval, who used to play for, he played for the Giants, then he played for Boston, and you can see how big the guy is. He's got a little bit of a gut. Anyway, they paid him like, I don't know, $19 million or something, and he was terrible. So they released him, and it was a contract, so they had to pay him all the money that they said that they were going to pay him. And now he went back to the Giants, and he played third base for him at the end of the season, and he was doing really, really well. I know, this is really kind of weird. But here he is, you can see how big his gut is. Poor old Pablo. We'll see how he comes back next year, since the Giants are no longer playing. Okay, so the family that uses a belt to discipline their children, the abusive belt-hitting family might not worry about their discipline technique because You know, I love this because they always come up with several different things that make their problem not serious. They never do it in public, so it's okay. It doesn't happen that often. They don't have to hit the kids that often with the belt. And last but not least, this must be the right way to discipline because their family has always done it this way, going back 5 generations. Obviously, it's the right way to discipline. Look how good, how wonderful this family is disciplining people with their belts. The task group says that getting started late is a problem, but not a serious one because students work on things at the last minute all the time and they still get things done because they are so brilliant. And I'm assuming that's what's happening with everybody in the classroom who hasn't turned in their histories yet, who haven't turned in their papers yet because you're so brilliant that it's no problem. You're going to be able to get them turned in and everything's going to be fine. Okay, for those of you who came in a little bit late, we're not going to start counseling until I get through all the lecture. That will teach you how to, and that, of course, that's what we're dealing with right now, is doing counseling. But we're going to get through all the lecturing and then we're going to start counseling. So the last part of the semester will be wall-to-wall counseling rather than what I did last year. I started about the 8th week. And I take it like a half an hour at the end of the period, and I'd lecture for an hour or for 45 minutes, and then for the last 30 minutes we would counsel back and forth. And we did that for about 7 weeks, I guess. But we'll just delay everything until the end of the semester, since I couldn't figure out how to deal with the online people. But we're going to deal with this. We're going to take care of the situation. Okay, so how about what's going on with the toaster? The business admits that their product isn't completely safe, but since most people are not negatively affected by it, it isn't really important to change it. Why is it important to change it? Because it only starts 1 or 2 houses on fire. Not that big a deal. Not that big a deal. Houses on fire, maybe it was a toaster that started the forest fire in California. Don't worry about it. Nothing to worry about. Thinking that the problem does not have a solution, being 50 pounds overweight is a serious problem, but everyone in the family is overweight and there is nothing that can be done about it. There is no solution to this problem. He's always going to be 50 pounds overweight. Disciplining children by hitting them with a belt may be considered a serious problem by some blue noses in the community. The ones that they always catch you at Walmart smacking your kid with your belt. But it is the only effective way to make their children behave is to hit them with a belt. We wanted to get a good grade on this project and knew that the starting late may mean that it won't be possible, but everyone was too busy. We just couldn't do it any other way. Of course, it has no solution. We had to get this grade. We didn't get the project done. And whose fault is it? It's nobody's fault because there was no solution to this problem. The business made a statement that selling a product that is unsafe is a risk, but it is a profitable product and they don't know any other way to improve the safety, any way to improve the safety. So they'll just keep making their toasters that start on fire. All right. Okay, the fourth means thinking the problem does not have a solution. Oh, wait a minute. Thinking that others have changed the problem, but they can't do it. I am concerned about being overweight, and I know that my friend lost weight recently, but losing weight isn't something that I can do. It's impossible for me, but everybody else can do it. I just can't do it myself. Okay, let's hit the kid again. We haven't been able to discipline our children except by hitting them, but our neighbors took a parenting course and learned several new ways to discipline their children, but I can't do it. They did it, but we can't do it because, by golly, our children are just the rottenest kids in the world. For the assignment, we weren't able to start working until right before the project was due, but some of the other groups in class somehow found enough time to work together before the project was due, and they got better grades than we did. Do you guys do this kind of stuff? Does Dene College, are there any professors that put you in groups? Has that ever happened here?
You should probably do.
At Shiprock they do, okay. Successful, unsuccessful, good way to teach, is this a good way to do it? Force people to be cooperative with one another?
Sometimes.
Does that work?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I feel that people with stronger personalities are the ones who carry most of the work,
Ah.
do most of the work.
Oh, there you go. So one or two people do all the work and
Usually.
the other people are skaters.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Of course, everybody in the room right now, we're the hard-working people, right? We don't have any skaters in here.
Only on Wednesdays.
Okay, well, good. We haven't found any way to be profitable except by continuing to sell an unsafe product, but there are other similar companies who have found alternative, safe, and profitable products. And by golly, it'd be nice if we could create a toaster that didn't start on fire. Okay, one of the biggest problems that you're going to be running into is discounting. The practitioner's job is to get the client to accept the problem exists. If you can't get them to admit that there's a problem, like in 28 days, it took her a couple weeks before she decided, it took her like 3 weeks before she decided she actually had a problem. What convinced, does anybody see the movie? 28 Days, Sandra Bullock? It's got that Norwegian guy in it that was Aragorn in the Tolkien trilogy. I can't remember his name. Okay, in the movie, the reason that she decided that maybe she had a problem was because her roommate committed suicide. And at that point she realized, wait a minute, maybe I really do have a problem. So the first thing you have to get them to do is to admit that they have a problem. The problem is serious. Whatever the problem is, it's serious. And it needs to be solved. It needs to be resolved one way or another. The problem is solvable by the client. The reality is that a lot of people want you to fix them. But the reality is you can't fix anybody. You can't fix anybody unless somebody wants to be fixed. You can't fix anybody unless they do what they need to do in order to fix themselves. And of course, if the motivation is all coming from you and none of it is coming from them, then it's not going to be a permanent solution to the problem. The client has to solve the problem themselves. I can do all of your calculus for you, and we'll get all the right answers. But until you can do those calculus problems, you still have a problem. You still don't know how. You still don't understand calculus. Most people are uncomfortable with change, so getting past discounting may take time. And this is one of the biggest problems that you're going to have, is the fact that people like things to be the same way every day. I come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, I leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I eat the same thing for lunch every day. 2 apples, 2 protein bars, and one of those fruit cups. Today I've got peaches. Tomorrow I'm going to have ruby red grapefruit. Okay. I don't like change. I don't want my schedule to change. And people like that. People want everything to be the same. It's one of the reasons why you continue to live in the same place over and over and over and over again. You may live in the same place all your life and never go anywhere else. Why? Why not just move to San Francisco? Why not just move to New York City? Why not move to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Why not move there? Because it's a change, and you would have to get used to new things. People don't like change. They want everything to be the same. They are habit. They get into a rut. They get into a habit, and they want to do the same thing over and over and over again. So if they're using something as a coping technique, that's what they'll use over and over and over again. And if that coping technique is something negative, like taking drugs or getting drunk or hitting somebody, getting angry, and that's the way you that's the way you cope with things, you need to change that. But of course, nobody wants to change because change hurts. Change is different. Coming here was different. I can tell you that northern Arizona is very much different than Iowa. You guys think you've got a forest out here. This ain't a forest. Your trees are only like this tall. Where I come from, the trees are 50, 70, 100 feet tall. In my house, I have these huge oak trees. You guys have oak trees, and somebody brings me oak wood, and they go, oh, I cut down an oak tree, and then look at it, I got all this wood. My God, I've got a tree that's this big around. It's only like 25 years old. That's the way things grow in Iowa. Okay. Change. So I had to change to come here. I live in a house that's 4 stories tall. Actually, it's 3 stories tall with a basement. I've got 4 stories in my house. You know how many stories I've got in my Hogan? My house is the size of my living room back in Iowa.
Claustrophobic?
No, it's not that bad. There's no corners. I have no corners in my house. Drives me nuts. Everything back in Iowa fits up against the wall. You know, stick it up against the wall. Doesn't work. Change. So some people can't handle change. And most people don't move as much as I have. So, and I'm okay. I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'll see if I'm okay by the end of the semester. This is my favorite picture. Strengths, capacity, and resources have significant effect on motivation. Clients who have many personal strengths, good social support, and adequate resources tend to be motivated. They want to change for somebody else. A lot of times you'll hear people decide to change because their children are getting older and they're starting to recognize mom as a drunk, or mom as a drug addict, or dad as the jerky guy that comes in and swears when he's drunk. But and now that he's old, now that they are older, of course, the people want to change. Usually that's what it is. People will stick with the same abusive spouse until the kids get old enough that they're recognizing what's going on. And now it's time to change. I can change now. When these were just little bitty guys, I didn't worry about it. I was trying to save my marriage. But now that my children are old enough, I'm kicking the bastard out, whoever the bastard may happen to be. Resilience is an important strength, of course. That is the ability to handle a trauma and come back actually stronger. And we as humans, we have this capability of coming back stronger, and that is known as resilience. The level of stress and demands reduces or enhances motivation. Clients who have faced extensive stress recently have high stress currently, have depleted their resources, and may have difficulty dealing with new stress. Okay, so the number one thing that you have to do is you have to reduce the stress in their lives. Otherwise, they can't. They're completely depleted. This may be going on right now with Sarah and I, because we're both teaching overload. So we're both kind of fragile, just a little bit, because we're fairly highly stressed right now because of all the work that we're doing. It's not easy. It's not easy. Grading all that crap, Edison hasn't given me a hard time. I told you I'd have your paper graded by today, but last night I just collapsed. I got home and I made supper, and it took me like 2 hours to make supper. I'm so slow. I'm just so tired.
Yeah, Sarah said she had done 800 papers.
No, all the way. She drove to San Diego, and of course Jerry drove the whole way, and she was grading papers. Oh my God, I can't imagine. What do you mean I can't imagine? What do you think I did all weekend? I graded all weekend long. Anyway, experience teaches the client that they have the ability to affect change. Experience leads to self-efficacy, which leads to hope. We've been through this stuff. We know that we can handle it. Sometimes we go through some really heavy stuff in life. And we handled it. We dealt with it. And now we know that we have the confidence that we can do it again. Well, I survived 2 divorces. I can certainly survive this. This is not going to kill me. I've been through this stuff before. I'm a procrastinator. I put things off. Like Edison's paper that I have to grade. Sitting on my desk right now. Right on top. It's on top, Edison. Don't worry about it. It's the first one I'm going to grade. Despite the fact that I've got like 5 other people telling me I need my paper back so that I can correct it so I can turn it back in. I'm going to do yours first, Edison, I promise. So the more experience you have in this stuff, the more likely that you will have the confidence to be able to deal with it. And this gives you hope. And that's, of course, what we're looking for. Another element of hope is an internal locus of control. They believe that their behavior will produce the desired changes. Some people have an external locus of control. In other words, they think that all of their problems come from outside of them, and they have no control over these things. But if you have an internal locus of control, you know that you have complete control over everything, because it's all internal. It is me. People with an external locus of control believe that control is external, of course, and that's what I was just talking about, and that they have no power to influence it, that they are marionettes, and that they are being controlled by somebody else. I'm fairly relaxed here. Dene College cannot do anything to me. I don't think. They can fire my ass. But of course, I've got Aaron covering my butt, right? You got my back, right, Aaron? Okay, there, yeah, okay. You saw how long it took you, okay. I'm 68 years old. I can retire anytime. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried that I'm going to lose this job. What, me worrying? I've got hope. I'm not a marionette. They can't control me. And of course, I guess I have that look on my face because people don't give me a hard time. Rarely give me a hard time. The administration. I have lots of problems with the administration. They don't like the way I talk. I swear too much. You may have noticed that. I swear too much. And I put it on tape. Thus, anything that they do has no connection to the outcome. There is no way that they can fix themselves, of course, because they have an external locus of control. So one of the things that you have to teach your client is that they do have control. This is what learned helplessness is. You have an individual that is married to an abuser. She's codependent. She's controlled by this select individual. She loves him, therefore she can't leave him. But at the same time, of course, she has learned helplessness. She thinks that he controls her life. And that is an external locus of control. And that's the biggest problem with learned helplessness. So what do you have to do to fix this lady? You have to convince her that she has control over her own life. That's what you have to do. Remember, an abused woman will go to the shelter 6 times before she decides to leave. That's the average, 6 times. That means that there are people out there that have been to the shelter 10 or 15 times. And the old man has broken their nose and knocked out all their teeth, and they think that he has complete control over them. But of course, it's possible. My wife, she'd get a call. She'd get a call to go out and pick somebody up and take them to the shelter. She'd have to go with the police. And at one point, they rescued a lady from a really negative situation. The guy had a gun, and of course the police were there, and he started shooting at them, shooting holes in the car. He wasn't trying to hit anybody. He was trying to punish the police for taking his wife away. He's drunk. For taking his wife away. And of course the cops are behind the car with their guns drawn and whatnot, calling out the SWAT team. But this has all happened before. And here's my wife, she's got the lady behind there, and the lady's screaming and crying, and of course she's got a towel pressed up against her jaw, and her mouth is bleeding. And the guy's shooting at the car. He's punching holes in the cop car. But he's done this before. He's shot up a cop car before. And they put him in jail for, I don't know, they put him in jail for 6 months or something. Does he have control over her? No. No, the cops have her now. Hope. Practitioners bring their previous experience, education, and beliefs about change to any meeting with the clients. They've seen it before. People have changed. People in worse situations have changed. So there is hope for this lady, or this guy. When change is not as quick or easy as clients want, the practitioners provide support and encouragement that change is possible. People are passive aggressive, which means they're not going to put a whole lot of effort into this. They're not going to believe you right away. They're passive aggressive. They'll let you do all the work, but of course that doesn't work. It's not going to work unless they do it. They've got to develop an internal locus of control, and they have to believe that change can happen. Of course, you believe that change can happen because you're a practitioner and you've seen it happen over and over again in worse situations. Anyway, you have to keep encouraging them to get them to change. Yes, people will be passive aggressive. This is probably the biggest problem we have right now, and it may get worse. It may get worse because people do everything online, which is relatively passive. It's like watching television. How much effort are you putting into watching television? The answer is not a whole lot, maybe none. It's a very passive activity, and this is the same way. Being on the cell phone is exactly the same way. You think you're communicating with people, and you are communicating with them to some extent, but it's relatively passive. So passive aggression may get worse in the future. That may be the number one thing that you guys have to deal with. And it's because of those damn cell phones. When I had to walk over and pick up the damn telephone, and I couldn't go very far because that thing held me to the wall, that was completely different. I mean, it was an effort to do these things, but you've got all the information in the world right there at your fingertips. And you think it only has the truth. If it's not true, they couldn't put it on the internet, right? There are no lies on the internet. So every damn thing you get off of those cell phones is all correct, right? Isn't that the way it works? Unless the Russian troll farm has tapped into Facebook and Twitter and what else did they Google, I guess they were Google. In order to be the number one thing on Google, people have to click on it. That's what they have to do. Well, you can get somebody to go open that website and close it and open it and close it and open it and close it and open it and close it, and you can make your whatever your idea is the number one thing on Google. You can do that, and Google knows that. The reason that Wikipedia always comes first is because everybody reads Wikipedia and believes everything that they see on Wikipedia. But the reality is that Edison could put all that crap on Wikipedia, and I'm sure you're a brilliant person, but I don't think you know everything, do you? We can do that. Okay, anyway. So this isn't all that accurate. And people are going to get more passive aggressive in the future because of their cell phones, as ugly as that is, or the internet. Another element of hope is the placebo effect. Research on counseling and medicine consistently shows that when people believe that something will help them, it often will help them. And it really doesn't matter. You can come up with all kinds of crazy things. You can come up with anything that you want. Here, take this quarter. This is a magic quarter. I have never, this quarter keeps coming back to me. It's a magic quarter, and if I give it to you, you're going to feel better just by touching it, okay? It's going to make you feel good. goodness is in this quarter. And once you fix yourself, you'll give it back to me, because it's a magic quarter. And you'll want me to fix other people. Well, does that work? Yeah, it works, as long as you believe that's exactly what's going to happen. That's the way life is. Life, all you have to do is believe, and it works. And that's known as the placebo effect. Okay. Into chapter 11. And there's our handsome Albert Mandura, graduating from college up in Canada. Okay, chapter 12. What is chapter 12 about? We're getting there, don't worry. Identifying key problems or challenges. How much time do I have? 11. Let's stop right here. Let's go ahead and stop. Addison's tired. I've been picking on him for the last hour.